welcome. If you are here, and I'll try to keep my eyes on the chat as we go, but if I miss something, just be patient. But if you're here, welcome. You are here for the AI 101 and City of Seattle initiatives. Our guest speaker today is Ginger Armbruster, and she will be joined by Sarah Carrier. And before we welcome them, I just wanted to give you a little info about DELN if you are not already familiar. Sorry, this doesn't want to go ahead. Oh, there we go. Okay, Digital Equity Learning Network of Seattle King County, or DELN. You can participate by joining our listserv. You can visit our website at digitalequitykc.org, and I can share this also in the chat. And you can email us at delnseattlekingcounty@gmail.com. I'll share that contact information in the chat. And I'll go ahead to the agenda. So today our welcome, we'll provide a couple of DELN updates. We'll move into the presentation, and I think we'll have some time for Q&A, and then we'll close out the presentation. So this will be an hour today that you're joining us, and again, welcome. We're happy to have you. Again, if you are not familiar with DELN, we are the Digital Equity Learning Network of King County. And we're a cross-sector coalition that works to advance digital equity in the region. And our mission is to leverage collective knowledge and resources to advocate for digital equity, share best practices, and to build system capacity towards digital inclusion, towards inclusion in the digital world. And what we do, we advocate for funding and resources needed to advance digital equity in our region. We offer learning and professional development opportunities for practitioners supporting digital literacy and navigation to improve their practice. We develop and curate up-to-date resources to support organizational readiness for digital equity. And we convene practitioners across the digital access, device, digital literacy ecosystem to strengthen their partnerships, share resources, and build a network that supports digital inclusion and digital equity. As far as updates go, I just have a couple here for you. If you're part of the listserv, you may have seen an email come through first through David Keys and Sabrina, and also through the listserv. For me, urging you to sign on to the Attorney General, the letter to the Attorney General to fight the cancellation of the Digital Equity Act grants. I'll be providing the links in the chat, so just keep an eye out for those. And there's also the link to sign on that letter. If you're able to, as an individual or organization, we welcome you to definitely, fight for that against the cancellation of it. Okay. And then also, if you are a DELN member, we will be sending out an annual membership survey and feedback form through the listserv. So just keep an eye on it, and we urge you to complete it. It's not only just to give you our feedback regarding, what we offer you here, but it's also to gather some information about our membership, and also in an effort to be able to provide a directory. So we'll be asking for your organization's name, populations you serve, and the types of services you offer. And I would expect that in the next couple weeks here. And I now would like to turn the presentation over to Ginger and Sarah, who will be, and for the first time, I think we're talking about AI, but they'll be presenting on AI 101 and City of Seattle initiatives. So welcome, Ginger. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you.
Please take a moment to introduce yourselves.
Thank you. Yes, I'm pleased to be here. I am Ginger Armbruster. I'm the Chief Privacy Officer for the City of Seattle. I have several different departments, or rather programs that run under me, including privacy, data compliance, and a few others. And what we are talking about today is really one that Sarah is running. She's our privacy program and responsible AI program manager at the city. And we're here to talk to you a little bit about AI. And let me then have Sarah, can you introduce yourself? Say a little bit about you.
Yeah.
I guess I can say a couple more words. I've been at the city about 10 years now. I came in as an intern and then got a master's degree at the University of Washington that led me to a master's in infrastructure management and planning, and was on the Cyber Corps and did a scholarship for service that allowed me to come to the city and learn more about what I determined was interesting was around privacy and issues around how we use data, how we build trust at the city, and then we built a privacy program, the first in the nation. And so now that's what Sarah's leading. So Sarah, go ahead.
Yeah, hi, thank you. I'm Sarah Carrier. As Ginger said, I'm the Privacy and Responsible AI Program Manager. Spending a lot more time historically in the privacy space, but over the last few years, as kind of this whole AI topic has really blown up, we've seen a need to put some a principle-based structure through governance around it, and kind of coupled with how we're thinking about using AI at the city in a manner that is responsible and identifies any risks or concerns in terms of how we use that as public servants, right? And how it could impact the folks that we serve. So that's what I've spent a lot more of my time recently doing over the last couple of years. And there's a lot of intersections in both of those kind of work streams. And so I'm really excited to be here and talk to you guys today. And excited for any questions. And thank you. And
In the way that our view has evolved, we started out being very privacy focused, but found
mhm.
quickly that privacy is really a larger, a small subset of really ethical use of data, which is where I think our intersection is with the work that you all do. So without
Yeah,
further ado, Sarah, do you want to start sharing slides?
yeah, let me give it a go. We'll see if I can choose the correct screen. Let's see how it goes.
Yeah. You have what, three at your desk?
I know. What is wrong with me? Okay. Can you all see that?
I can see it. Yep, we're good.
Okay, perfect. So I'm gonna do a little reorganizing here. Okay, so here we go. We will dive in quickly to our AI 101 conversation, some of the things that we are working on in the city of Seattle, and hopefully that you guys can take and apply to your lens of AI with the work that you guys do. And happy to have questions too along the way. So thanks for monitoring the chat, Catherine.
All right.
Oh,
All right.
there we go. Bada
So
bing,
we're
bada boom.
Yep, we're going to spend some time on the following. So, what is AI and why is it so prevalent? It's everywhere. We're actually using it right now, I think, in the recording and transcribing of this meeting, a version of artificial intelligence. So, we're going to talk about that. What is it? Why is it? Why are we hearing about it everywhere? What should I be aware of? How will AI likely show up in your own organization? We don't know you all as well as you all do, but we have some ideas about where AI is probably intersecting with most organizations and specifically where it may be showing up for you all. And then what do you start? Where do you start to understand really what you're getting yourself into? Now, I will say I'm not a data expert. I'm not an artificial intelligence expert. I'm not somebody who can go and build one of those. Sarah's a little closer to that. She has a degree. You can go ahead, Sarah, and tell a little bit more about what you're doing. But we're coming at this from a lens of awareness of the potential risks as well as benefits of a technology that scoops up a whole lot of data. So it intersects again with that kind of ethical, how should we be using this? How should we be using the public's data and what does it mean for individuals? So go ahead, Sarah, your background is.
Yeah, sorry, I should have done that in the intro. I kind of skipped over that part. So my background, I was originally an early childhood educator, and then I went back to school at the University of Washington, where I studied privacy, IT policy, data privacy, IT policy, and also data science. So as we kind of get into what is AI and what does it look like, there's a good intersection point there around the aspect of data science. So that's my background. Sorry, I missed that part. Okay. Forge ahead.
All right, here we go. So we're going to take a minute. Just what is artificial intelligence? All you are going to come to this with a different understanding. Some of you may have a deep knowledge, so please entertain us for a moment. For those that are still trying to catch up, what is this exactly? Artificial intelligence simulates human intelligence, but in machines. It's designed to think, learn, and solve problems. And I put think in quotation marks because it's not really thinking like a human. It's a little bit more about crowdsourcing information that is available to a large learning module, this or LLM, a large model of where data is coming from. So it's sort of like crowdsourcing or the internet on steroids. That's how it's thinking, learning, and solving problems and trying to apply through algorithmic processes simulating how people think and make decisions. So it can boost efficiency and connectedness. We're doing that right now. We're going to be very efficient with the notes that are going to come out of this meeting and be transcribed. It can automate tasks. It can analyze data. It can uncover insights really at speed, much faster than a human can largely think. Powers technologies. There are voice assistants. There are self-driving cars, personalized recommendations when you find yourself getting hosted and different information coming at you, or you're trying to do flight reservations. Any of those interactions likely have an artificial intelligence piece to it. And it's really shaping the way we live, work, and innovate, because it's allowing us to do some of the stuff that took so long before much, much more quickly. I will intersect here, though. Artificial intelligence doesn't mean it's the smartest person in the room. It may mean that it is the technology has the most information available to it at the time. But we've had people say artificial intelligence, and if you create something with generative AI, like creating a piece of paper, a memo, a letter, it's probably like your smartest intern that you've ever hired. Doesn't mean that it's 100% accurate. Doesn't mean it's your voice. But that's a way to think about artificial intelligence at this time. Okay, next slide.
Yeah. Yeah, and I also want to say too, I know like AI has a long history, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, in terms of the timeline and the evolution of kind of this space, of artificial intelligence. But a lot of people think like, oh, like her or like, I robot, right? Those types of things, right? And it's certainly true, right? AI is used in robotics in a lot of ways, but it's also the things like, do you want to tag your friend in this Facebook photo? Right? It's also the Alexa that's in your house that helps you, create your grocery list or things like that, right? And so I think sometimes it can be super complex, like self-driving cars and all this very, kind of tech heavy when you think about it, like robotics and tech heavy stuff, but it also can be things that we use all the time in our everyday lives, and it is. And so just like wanted to level set there too, which, maybe you all are familiar with. Some of us have maybe more interaction than others. But I think as we kind of go through the evolution of how AI in the field of AI has changed over time, we'll kind of see where how quickly it's moving and where it's going, and why it's really important to start having these conversations, so that we can make sure that, because the fact of the matter is it's been here, and so we have to figure out what is our approach to it and how can we leverage it to get the most out of it to help us, right? In a way that we feel comfortable with, and try to help folks learn about that themselves and the people that we serve. So, okay, soapbox over now.
All right. Next slide. Let's move on to the next bit of information. Okay.
Yeah, so this one, this is just kind of a little bit of a reiteration of what Ginger was saying. When we think about the term AI, it's really a big umbrella term. So we kind of try to think about it at the city in a way that this is a lot of words, and I'm not going to like story time you right now. But AI is a big kind of umbrella term that's kind of like a field of, machines, quote unquote, thinking or processing information, right? In a way that would be similar to what we would consider human intelligence, right? So we kind of think of AI as a broad category almost of things. And within that, we have things like machine learning, deep learning, and then generative AI, all of which are kind of nested within the larger umbrella of artificial intelligence. So machine learning this is where kind of like my background in data science, we did a lot of machine learning with data science and evaluation. It leverages algorithms basically to detect patterns in data sets, small or large, right? So it's basically statistics with computer code, thinking about it like that, and trying to pull bits of information or generate bits of information, whether it's like, I'm going to predict what the weather is going to be tomorrow, right? Predictive models, or whether it's, more of descriptive, like what is the average number of, sales that I have in this region, right? Those types of things. And so basically asking those questions via computer code, those algorithms will help put out answers that either predict or categorize information. So that's generally what we're talking about. We're talking about machine learning. Then we get more complicated to go into things like deep learning, which kind of is a type of machine learning that is trying to mirror how our neural networks work in our brain to create a lot more context and nuance output in terms of the I say decisions it's making, but the conclusions it's coming to, the answers it gives you, right? The things you're predicting, and finds undetected, like seemingly very hard patterns to find in the data. And then generative, which is the thing that really kind of spurred the program um, that we have at the city in terms of responsible AI, is when ChatGPT splashed on the scene. ChatGPT is obviously a generative AI solution, but there's a ton of them now. I'm just using that as an example. But essentially, it's going to produce net new content for you based on the training data that the models were trained on. So whether it's text, right? Like write me this memo, summarize this email, capture the meeting minutes or the meeting notes, those types of things, to we know that there's generative AI that generates code, computer code now, images, videos, all sorts of different things, right? And so that's kind of how we think about, I mean, really high level, what AI is. AI is an umbrella term that encompasses all of these things, all these different quote unquote types of AI. So, and they all kind of have a little bit different lens, and there's so many, almost infinite use cases for these different types of AI. And we'll talk about what some of those are at the city and how they might look in your organization, or how you're using the technology. So,
All right. Thank you, Sarah.
yeah. Um, I'll go through this one too. This is a little bit of a boring slide, and also it looks like it was built in 1992. Sorry, I'm not the best graphic artist. Um, So just to take you a little bit through the timeline of AI, and re-emphasizing that this conceptually has been around for a very long time, since the 50s. And it started with the first machine translation attempts with DARPA funding in the 50s. And everyone got really excited about it. And they were like, yes, we're going to fund it. We're going to put money at it. And DARPA is a U.S. Defense Research projects agency. And so everyone got really excited about it. And then in like the mid 70s, there kind of ran into some roadblocks around funding cuts. It was super expensive to maintain and execute and do the machine translation. And so they kind of have like a little bit of a lull in progress or advancement in the AI space. And then in the 80s, they came out with what they call expert systems, which is kind of like the first real effort or realization of things that like mimic human decisions. So think of like if-then decisions. Like if I mix, the blue and the red paint, I'll get purple paint, right? Or like if I do these two things, then I'm going to do that, right? And so those kinds of things were really exciting because they'd never been done before. And so then we see another surge in increased funding. And then we kind of go into like this second winter and like the late 80s, early 90s, where we realized, oh, well, there are actually quite a few limitations in that kind of if-then type of reasoning and processing. They were having like software issues, system failures, and so DARPA's like, we're cutting funding again to research this and advance in this field, right? But then we all know what happened in the 90s and early 2000s, which was big data. Data started happening, the internet came, right, and became a thing. And we had all of a sudden had all of this data to use, right? We had more ability from a kind of a technical perspective. We had more computing power to process that data, right? Things got faster, we had more memory, right? All of these types of really kind of techie things, hardware type things came, and the internet came. And AI eats data. That is how we make these things function very well, is we provide them a lot of data to learn and to train them on. And so when the internet blew up and big data and cloud computing and all of those types of things that happened in the 2000s, 2010s, and even now to this day, we've seen an exponential rapid increase in terms of progress and advancement in the AI space. It's moving very, very, very quickly right now. So it's new and it's increased, but it's also pretty old conceptually, just to provide a little context. Yep.
Okay.
You want to go for this one, Ginger?
No, you go for it. Go ahead.
Okay. And so just with all of that level setting and context about what is AI and kind of how we're thinking about it, I think Ginger referenced this earlier in the slide. AI and data science, machine learning, all of those types of things, they allow us to do what you see here on the left-hand side, right? It allows us to solve problems quickly and also really big problems, right? It allows us to reinvent our processes and our organization. Um, it also challenges us to be responsible and to maintain public trust, which I know that we talked about. Ginger talked about, like, one of our charges, especially within the work that we do in the privacy and responsible AI space within Ginger's division, is to make sure that we as a government agency are fostering public trust in the folks and the residents that we serve. And so it's super, super important to be mindful of what are the ethical impacts or considerations that we have in using these technologies that are super, super powerful. It allows us to bring along our folks in our communities, right? Something that's super important to us is to be as transparent as possible. And the data that we're using, the technologies we're using, how we're using them, and help support folks in also bringing them up to speed on how to safely and effectively use these technologies so they can get the most out of it. And that's something that I think, you know, from a digital equity perspective, we're going to really try to be focusing on in the next year or two is how we can do additional outreach within communities around Seattle and our residents that we serve, to make sure that folks feel supported, aware, and knowledgeable about how they can leverage these tools in a way that is, if they want to, in a way that is beneficial to them, in how they think they want to move through kind of this new technological era we're in. And I also think it allows us to partner across sectors. So, you know, obviously we have a lot of partnerships with academia. We're here speaking to you all, right? We have, you know, work that we partner with at the city, specifically with different community-based organizations. And so even vendors, even the world of vendors, right? If we're like procuring an AI technology and using it at the city to support business operations or any number of things, we have opportunities to partner across sectors to really make big impact in a positive way with these tools if we do it thoughtfully, ethically, and responsibly. So big opportunities, big challenges. These are just some of the things that we think about in how we move through this space. So let's see what's next here. Ginger, you want to take this one?
Yeah, I'll take this. So what does this mean for the city of Seattle? Every organization has to look at where can I get benefit, but here are the areas that we're focusing on, that we're seeing a lot of interest in. A lot of people pounding on IT's door to give me these tools, and they are in these kind of areas. Operational tasks, analyzing data, inventory management, workload scheduling, kind of how do I operationalize and get better, finer tuning what we do. Our transportation department has always been forward thinking. They have a Vision Zero plan that there will be no more accidents and pedestrian deaths. So they have a focus on safety. And so our SDOT, Seattle Department of Transportation, has been looking at AI to see how it can improve, also predicting traffic flows, but how can it improve transportation? What are some of the solutions that may help in that area? Permitting is another big one. Doing business with the city and getting a permit, if anyone's ever done that, that can be a thing, right? There's a lot of laws. There's a lot of ways we do things. There's a lot of requirements. Data has to be provided appropriately, and people can find that quite confusing. So we're putting in and looking at how artificial intelligence can help expedite and improve our application support process, where we can have permitting code analysis. And if you present a permit, you can go quickly through and see, do we have all the information we need to expedite how we're serving the public there. And then customer support. People make a lot of phone calls in. How can I work better with the city, and how can AI perhaps help our own customer service people be better informed and answer more appropriately and accurately questions that come to them? Service management. So how can we make recommendations? How can we find out what's really wrong with a system that we're using? We are in the IT department, so this is an area that we focus on often. And then how can IT overall use artificial intelligence to help identify security risks? How can we look at patterns of behavior that are anomalous that may mean that somebody's trying to break in? You should know there's tens of thousands of attempts to break into the city and get our data every week. And so how can we be better at that, knowing that what we're really trying to do is protect the public's data? And finally, performance monitoring. How are we using these systems? How are we using our own systems to make the most use of the resources we have? Never enough money at a city or a municipality, so how can we be as appropriate with that as we can? All right, next slide. So we gave some thought to how you may see this show up in other organizations. We know kind of what it means to us at the city, keeping in mind we have like 40 plus departments, all with a mission-driven focus. So lots of areas for AI to be used, but we're thinking, where does perhaps AI fit into your organization? And I selected this kind of, what does an office maybe look like? Lots of paper flowing around. How can we streamline what we do? I think that AI we're seeing can enhance communications, translation services, language simplification. We have an executive order in right now that our mayor put in just in the last few weeks about plain language so that we can communicate better with the community. And I'm thinking that is an area that for digital equity, how do we help people understand where they're at, what we're trying to convey? We can increase efficiency, so just workforce efficiency. How can you maybe not do the tasks that are labor intensive, but really are time waste? Expanding data analytic capability. Data analytics help us make performance, metric kind of decisions. How can we be digitally or data driven in how we make decisions? So dashboards are an area that can really help understand how we are looking at the data that we have available. Increasing employee productivity. So internal process improvement, how generative AI can help perhaps generate information. We had early on looking at some of the solutions that if our department is doing continual communication about a topic, they got to change it up enough so that it's available to the community in a new way and they pay attention. That's one example. How can you make social media be a little more zippy? How can you use generative AI to help put things in different terms? So that's also there. And improving community support. So I'm thinking community outreach contact systems can help. Artificial intelligence can help do predictive work that way. And information chatbots can be helpful, always putting a human in the middle, because we have examples everywhere of chatbots giving out wrong information, but they can also be very helpful in getting people maybe quick facts that you're able to make available. So Sarah, next slide.
Yep.
And what are some of the risks? We talk about what AI can do for us, and I think often when we have a technology make a splash like ChatGPT, people look at the things it can do. We have early adopters that immediately jump in and want to make use of a technology. There's some things to think about, and why are we even concerned? Why do we have a program at the city that talks about how we should use AI? And the first one is that artificial intelligence and the solutions that are built and the data that are accessible can expand or pass on the same bias or discrimination that the data or the person that built or the people that built the system maybe unknowingly have. So there can be algorithmic bias if it's built on data that is perpetuating decision making that can have that kind of problem. When AI is used in human resources and hiring, in healthcare, it can unintentionally impact marginalized groups because data may not be available as much as we may need for groups that are perhaps marginalized already and their data is not available. I'm thinking in healthcare, we all know and have read about limitations for testing new medicines in certain groups, and so that's something to think about. There's an issue of unequal access. Advanced AI uses high-speed internet, modern devices. There's literacy that may not be equally available to the community. So that stuff definitely makes that digital divide even wider as we look at the high speeds and the technology needed. Privacy and surveillance, AI-driven data collection surveillance may impact vulnerable groups. That's why we have a privacy program at the city and a surveillance ordinance, and that's something to be very concerned about. As AI can do object recognition, facial recognition, those are all things that are of concern around privacy obligations that we have, as well as surveillance. Misinformation and manipulation, I think we see this more commonly than we'd like, but generative AI can really spread false or misleading content. And the problem is if a community, there's negatively affect community members who don't have fact-checking resources or haven't been trained on the fact that, yeah, that thing may be true and it may not be. We've seen deep fakes, we've seen political campaigns upended, we've seen information looks completely accurate and real, completely generated by AI, which can really change decision-making, all that. And then finally, the power concentration concern about how a few large companies are really dominating development. They're sidelining diversity and community needs if they're not taking that into account. So we're seeing the technology big firms out there, really OpenAI, Microsoft, all good partners, but these are also where we're seeing the money and talent really concentrating where this is being where the development and where the industry is going. And it can limit inclusive innovation and equity in policymaking if you are concentrating where everything is developed. Is that happening all the time? No, it's not. But these are all things that people need to think about when they dive in to the shiny thing that looks really cool. And hey, my buddy Joe used this and I want to use it too. These are things to think about. What are you using it on? Where is the data going? Okay, next, Sarah.
Yep.
And I'm going to take this one if I may, Sarah.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is an important one. Anytime a new technology is on the scene, we really need to think about what are my values about using this. So where do you start is really this slide. What do I start to think about if I'm going to introduce AI solutions into my organization? What are your values? What's most important to you? Find where you might go wrong using AI. We've talked a little bit about some of the risks around bias. We've talked some risks about inaccurate information. Data collection, once you collect data on folks and you're using usually often one of those large language models, the information is now sucked into a very large community of information that now becomes part of that crowdsourcing we talked about. So you want to be careful about what data you're contributing. And this might be a good place to, well, I'll say in a minute, you want to commit to a principles-based approach. So, for example, we've made decisions about how our HR department is or is not going to be using certain tools. Where does it make sense? It might make sense in outreach. It might make sense as we're trying to get applicants and do recruiting. May not make sense at all with concerns about bias or algorithms making decisions to try to maybe use AI to look at resumes and start to make decisions about who we should or should not bring in for interviews. Those are things to think about. Doesn't mean it's always wrong, just maybe something to worry about. And then I really want to kind of say, be particular. be particular. Free doesn't always mean free. Anytime that you're using something free off the internet, any solution, really, it's looking for your information. You could then end up being the product. So the reason it's free is it's getting something from you, and that will always be data or data of clients you work with or the communities you work with. And that's true really with any free solution. Unfortunately, the reason you want to have a paid license is so that you have some control over how the data and how the information is being used. And I'm going to take this moment to say one of the concerns the city has right now is if we get involved with some of these early technology companies that have like 2 to 10 employees, their exit strategy is to get bought by bigger companies. So whatever agreement we've come to with that company about how data is going to be used and what our agreements and contracts are, that may change when they get sold. So that's what to think about. And Sarah was very, very much the leader in developing our principles around how we use AI. And so these are the principles that was developed in a course over several months using information and kind of the subject matter expertise in academia. We had people from the University of Washington step in, the DELN Institute for AI, other folks that came involved who have different areas of expertise, law, et cetera, to come up with these principles. And Sarah, I'm going to let you speak a little to this. This was your baby that you delivered, and these are the principles that are now how we are making decisions. And I will say this: when we first started the privacy program, we didn't have one in the nation. It was new for a government. I had very good advice from the Dean Emeritus of the University of Washington, the law school, and he said, always start with principles. It's the last time you're ever going to agree on anything that you do. But if you can come down to the things that are your bottom values, this is absolutely what we need to do, decision making does become easier, or at least you know what you're coming from, and you make decisions about whatever it is you're going to move forward on. So go ahead, Sarah, on the principles here.
Yeah, I'll just briefly touch on them. So when we were thinking through with the group what a set of principles specific to AI could look like, what became clear is that there are so many intersection points, things that we think about with technology broadly, not specific to AI. So privacy, security, those type, information or data security, cybersecurity, those things are still true, right? And so you'll see those represented here because the use of AI specifically not only reiterates those values that we already have as a city, but also ensures that we are addressing these things as new, for example, security risks in the AI space are popping up or privacy risks, right? So because things are moving so quickly, there are kind of new uh, areas of security specific to AI that are increased risks that we don't see with other types of technology. So we wanted to make sure some of those existing foundational things and programs and lenses were incorporated into these principles as well. We also wanted to make sure and what was important to us is that our principles also reflected some of the things that we know the city values um, all up, right? So, innovation and sustainability, right? Innovation is obviously very important to us. We're in Seattle. We are, kind of a tech hub and often a leader in the tech space. It is an important value to us as a city, right? Sustainability. We do have a climate action plan, and we are committed to certain, kind of environmental and sustainability commitments, right, in that space. Transparency and accountability. We are a government agency, right? Transparency is ultimately very important to us and making sure that we are accountable to the residents that we serve. Right. And we talked about bias and harm reduction and fairness. At the city, we have commitments around race and social justice and also digital equity. I see Delia here. And so we wanted to make sure that there are various aspects of kind of things that we know are core to what we already value and are committed to as a city that are reflected here and applied in the AI space in a very intentional way. So those are some of the types of things that we see here. And I think the last one I haven't touched on is explainability and interpretability, which, can be a little bit challenging in terms of we often hear about AI being like a black box. Like we don't know how it made the decision that it made, but it made it, right? And I think to a certain extent, that's true, but to the greatest extent possible, if we are deploying and using very powerful tools, we need to understand what they do and how they're doing it to the greatest extent that we can, so that we understand that we can validate the accuracy of what the AI system is outputting, right? If it's informing a decision, we need to make sure that that is a reliable decision that we think, yeah, we actually kind of know how it got there and we agree with that decision, right? Those types of things. And so this is kind of what we came up with. And these are not, necessarily like a golden standard. Every organization, every individual will have kind of their own take on what is important to them in terms of values and the use of these tools. And so just thinking through, kind of what could go wrong and is that more important to me than this other thing, and kind of just building that scaffolding to help think through what you think your principles ought to be, kind of your North Star for moving forward
And,
in
and
using AI.
And I would say building principles as a group, it's really hard to bring a list like this and say, okay, this is what we're going to do. People really have to come to this. It's a journey, right? It's a journey to understand what is important to us as a group, as an organization. Let's all commit to that. Because as I said, last time you're going to agree on the solutions or things at the specifics of where that leads you. And so you really need that North Star to help make that a smoother journey.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think this is our last slide.
I think it is. So really what's next. We didn't give you all the information there is to have about artificial intelligence. Maybe we gave you some things to think about. Maybe you knew a lot of this, maybe you didn't. Maybe it gives you areas that you're concerned or want to know more. Keep learning. There's a lot of tools out there. We're going to be running some seminars later in the year around artificial intelligence about things to be concerned about. This may be something that you want to attend or have people you interact with attend. Want more information about that? We're working probably through the Seattle Public Libraries and other community-based places. But keep learning, find out more. We know what we know, but this is a fast growing area. I think, we look at the exponential learning curve that every product really goes through. We saw it with cloud computing. We are seeing intelligence and intelligent systems just at an incredibly quick rate, adding functionality and getting better at what it does. So you want to keep learning about this area and make sure you're knowledgeable in how it affects you, and keep moving forward. We can't say this doesn't exist, right? And for a lot of us, the scary sci-fi aspects of artificial intelligence and where we worry about where computers can go, we got to move forward with this technology and don't let it leave you behind, because it really can provide just so much benefit. And then again, lay the foundation with your organization, have some deep thoughts about and conversations about what do we stand for, what's important to us, where can this be help. There's a lot of salespeople out there banging down on our doors, so I'm assuming that may be happening with you as well, maybe not, but a lot of people are coming to us with all kinds of solutions, and it's important to know what are we looking at and what are we not. And I think the final thing we can say, and you may have heard this term before, is just make sure whatever you do, there's a human in the loop making decisions. I think if you start to use generative AI, in areas that you are an expert on, you'll notice that whatever it generates information on, it's probably 80% accurate. I made the comment early in this conversation about, most generative AI is probably as smart as your smartest intern, but that doesn't mean that's somebody with the most experience or who represents the values of your own organization. So you're going to want to be involved with any output that comes from an artificial intelligence solution, whether it's generative AI or machine learning. You want a human to make sure and validate the output so that you're not perpetuating harm or outright being inaccurate. So those are kind of our suggestions. We have a responsible AI website that's going to be updated here very shortly. You're going to hear some more things about the city of Seattle and how we're moving forward on a plan for AI. So there is more coming, and we are getting our ducks in a row so we can understand how to best use this technology. And we're available for questions for a while if this generated anything you want to know more about. Sarah, thank you for lending your expertise to this. You've been an amazing leader in the space, and any questions? Anything we can answer or illuminate in any way?
Yes, please feel free to come off of mute or jump in the chat if you're more comfortable with that, but we'd, love to hear your questions. I have a question.
Yeah.
Sorry to jump ahead if anybody
Yeah, no, go right ahead.
getting prepared, but I think the note that I'm, as it's applicable to the organizations we're working with here, but maybe you can talk about some common misconceptions about AI that the community members or practitioners should be aware of. Misconceptions.
I think one that I would say is that we automatically, when we see something in print or in pixels, think it's true. And AI can sound really, really good. It can also make stuff up. Those are called hallucinations. So I think overcoming the idea that, because it's a computer giving me this very formal looking output or very slick looking dashboard, that the information's accurate. I think we need to keep our questioning mind going every time we interact with a system, to make sure and validate that the outputs are correct. Sarah, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I think I have a couple of thoughts. So I think one misconception or thing that I hear sometimes from folks is, oh, it's like magic, right? And we kind of joke around about it with like, oh, the AI does its auto magical thing, right? It's not. It's not magic. It's math. Uh, and and uh, and so I think that that's where kind of the education and training and upskilling and awareness efforts can really help support people in understanding a little bit more foundationally what it is, that it's not magic, right? It is math, and it is been learned and trained by a set of individuals. And there is an error rate in any math, right? You're never going to find something that's 100% correct all of the time, right? There's a margin of error there, no matter kind of which type of AI that you're using. And so I think that that's one uh, misconception. And I also think another misconception could be, I think um, AI has been such a hot topic lately, and it has been almost just like splashed in all of our faces in terms of the accessibility of it, the use of it, it's all over the news, all of these types of things. And I think one of the misconceptions is, and I certainly can like admit this as well, working from the privacy space, which is a very risk-based, I'm a little bit more risk averse maybe than like most people might be because of the work that I do. But that it's scary and we shouldn't use it, I think could also be a misconception that people have, right? And while there certainly are risks, and we can talk about those, and we did talk a little bit about some of those, um, it doesn't mean there's not utility there and that it's not safe to use. I think that when we think about identifying what those risks could be, we also think about, everyone has their own lens of what that risk benefit trade-off is that's important to them, right? And so being able to have awareness and knowledge enough to say, hey, I know there could be, maybe this is going to give me inaccurate information, or maybe this, generative AI solution might hallucinate, but I actually still think like I think it's fine. I'm going to use it and I'll just review and edit what it outputs. Totally cool with that, right? And so I think there's a misconception that AI is terrifying and scary and it's, a little bit and yes, risks, but it's not. We can use it in a safe way as long as we're thoughtful about how we do that and understand kind of what's important to us. So that's what I would say.
I can give an example. The first time I used AI, and you're gonna think I'm terribly unromantic. It was my 21st anniversary, and I had to write a card. And for anybody who's been in a relationship a really long time, you've kind of said it all. You know what I mean? Like what do I? So I put a few keywords into Chat GPT, and I said, write a romantic, lovely. It did. It was lovely. I moved some words around. And my husband was just, oh, honey, this is so sweet. I'm like, yeah, it is. Oh, wow. Okay. I'm going to tell the story now. But those low risk areas of trying out a new technology is really your best bet. I don't think putting all of your math or sorry, all your banking information to one of these and saying, what should I invest in? Probably not the right thing to do. That's high risk, right? Or decisions you're making about individuals, healthcare example. Those are high risk, but there are a lot of low risk ways to kind of go into the wading pond and get your feet wet with AI. And I will say we have run into some things that I might warn you about too. There are some solutions that for example, can help with transcription. We're doing that now on Zoom, and that's great. There are some of those tools that are really sticky. They get into your computer, they get into your stuff, and there was one particularly we had to ban at the city because it crawled through calendars. So if I wanted to be a part of a meeting, somebody had this activated, then it would then join. It would somehow was all over my calendar. It kept popping up. So you want to be aware of those free solutions that maybe are higher risk because now it's in my system. It took a lot to get it out and we had to ban it at the city. So anyway, those are just some things to think about.
Thank you. And I see Asfa, your hand is up. Please come off mute.
Thank you. My name is Asfa Lemlem. I work for Seattle Housing Authority.
Oh, hello.
And my question is, what's the city's policy regarding for departments for employees using generative AI? And if they don't allow, what's the risk and how long do we, as organization, you lose by not using those
tools.
tools?
Yeah. I can speak a little bit about where we're at with generative AI. We wrote the very first, well, Sarah wrote the very first generative AI policy. I think us in Boston were neck and neck. Anyway, we about 3 years ago, and the policy basically says you don't use this tool without going through IT. Here are the risks we want to talk about. Here are the principles. That's a whole effort around uncovering and generating what our principles are. So the policies: you don't use generative AI, you don't use your own credit card, you don't introduce it into the environment. However, there are so many ways to bring AI in. People do have their own credit cards. There are free versions of things. So we are right now developing the automated policies that will allow us to control our own environment. while we're doing that, because that's the what thou shalt not, the what can you do, we are finally able to start doing some piloting of some of the major company offerings, like from OpenAI and Microsoft. We're finally able to do some piloting to see how those tools might work broadly across the enterprise. One thing to know about government is one of the reasons we're a little bit slower in technology is that there is government versions of the same products that are available in the public sector, and they have to be. We have a lot of requirements, a lot of regulatory oversight. So, if you have utilities, you have a certain set of regulations that make it very difficult to use new technologies until they've been brought into the government environment. So, um, we have been we have, I don't know, 38 different products that different departments have brought in under exceptions over the last few years, so that we are starting to get experience in some of these generative and other AI solutions. And now we're at the point where we are trying to come up and working hard over the summer to have some pilots so that we can talk about enterprise wide. The difficulty, of course, there is that everything costs money. And some of these new solutions, even if we already have licenses with some of the major providers, are going to cost more. So we have to make judicious decisions right now about how we spend those resources. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
It looks like we have a question in the chat. Sabrina, did you want to come off mute or did you want me to ask that for you? Okay.
Go ahead. It's just, do you have any suggestions for nonprofits and community-based organizations in navigating companies that approach us about public-private partnerships related to AI? Just some questions to keep in mind.
We have contract terms. Sarah, do you want to talk a bit about that? Of course, we deal with this all the time. I think these can be very valuable and good opportunities to work and maybe get a good economic benefit from it, as well as have an opportunity to craft and get a solution that works specifically for you. Sharing your principles, sharing your values, sharing what's important to you, being very, very aware of how your data will be used, because often those partnerships are about how we're going to be using this product or developing it, right, and how we're going to use your data. So we do have terms, and the good news about the city is nothing's secret. So if you want information, you just ask for it, and we will be happy to hand over what we've created that may help guide you in how you interact with companies like that. I think it can be a good thing. You want to look at who is this company, where are they from, data sovereignty, is it staying where you want it to be? Are you exposing really sensitive information to maybe not friendly countries? You want to be just aware of what you're getting into, depending on the sensitivity of the information you have. So doing a little research on who that company is. We've been approached really recently, and I really mean it. This company has like two employees. So, do you want to put a lot of your sensitive information with what might not be a permanent environment? So the city is a little more cautious. We tend to not be the bleeding edge, but those are questions you might want to ask. Sarah, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, and my brain automatically also went to ensuring that there's contract terms in place around what happens with your data, if there's an incident related to the AI system, those types of things. And again, yeah, we can share what we have as well. I think another thing just to keep in mind too, because partnerships are super, super important, right? Like we have a ton of partnerships, like we talked about before, and so there's a lot of utility there. But I also think sometimes if there is a product to sell, they will sell it, you know? And so, and that's fine, right? Like that's what they're there to do, and that helps feed the partnership. But understanding sometimes it it may not be exactly what you need, right? It's sales first, problem later type of approach. And so just being very clear about what problem is you're trying to solve in using this, in entering into the partnership and leveraging the tool set, right? So thinking through what are your outcomes that you're looking for? Where do you need help? What's the problem within your organization? I don't have time to do X, Y, and Z. This tool looks like it could help me with X, Y, and Z. Those types of things. Being very clear on the scope of what you're trying to do. And then right sizing and making sure those partnerships and the tools that they offer are aligned to meet those exact needs. Because sometimes it can be, oh, we'll tell you our thing can do whatever it wants, and this is going to be a great partnership. And then you kind of get into it and you're like,
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's not really what I thought it was gonna we were gonna get out of this, right?
Yeah.
And so just being very clear about scoping what it is you're looking for as you enter into those relationships.
I think those are really good points. I think our CTO has a number, and I'm not sure how he, what he says is of the solutions that we've tried, some of those exceptions I talked about, 38 or however many, about 80% have not worked out for what we thought they would offer. So having a really good idea of what your success criteria are going in, return on investment, how long does it take to get trained up on this thing? Does it really do what we want? What did we do before, and what did that take, and how did this improve it? So those are some ideas that you might think about.
Delia, I see your hand up.
Yeah, so I have a question. So Sarah and Ginger, so a lot of the folks in this group do focus on digital literacy training
Yeah.
and are thinking about, you know, how to incorporate AI literacy into that work as kind of a foundational skill and then also sort of addressing that like barrier
Yeah.
um, to adopting and gaining skills. So, do you have any recommendations for resources that might exist around AI education
Yeah.
that could be that people could take a look at?
Yeah. So there's a lot of, so first of all, every major tech company or anything will have their own product specific type of training, right? So there's there are those types of training that's available. There's training with an organization, it's called Blue Dot. And then we also are currently partnering, and I think Ginger alluded to this earlier, on putting together some literacy and upskilling workshops, both internal for city employees, because we know we need to do that within our organization, but also public facing, right? To help support the communities that we serve and getting up to speed on kind of potentially, adopting these tools in what they are doing and in their lives, right? And so that organization is called the AI Safety and Awareness Project. And they have a lot of good content, and they work through partnership as well. So there are a lot of opportunities that we're looking to explore there in terms of code developing, and delivering workshops and public facing trainings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Delia, since you're on our team, you'll be hearing more about some of the training that we're going to be making available that would
Mhm.
probably be useful for this organization to know about. So we can certainly pass that along. We recently got approval, like yesterday, for our AI plan at the city. And so we're going to be able to go forward with more of our outward facing resources. And so we'll continue to make that available as we can. And Delia, you can be our conduit back to this group if you'd like, if you find things that you think would be useful. I put our thank you, Sarah, for putting that in there. And then I put our contact information, privacyseattle.gov is kind of the blanket one. We all of us take a look at that, and so that's a good way to reach out to, especially in the summer when maybe vacations are happening and it's harder to reach us. But feel free to reach out to me or to Sarah. I put our emails in the chat if we can be of help to you in some of these items that you brought up.
Right, we might have time. Well, no, we just have 1 more minute left. So I'm sorry if you have a question, please follow up with them. I wanted to say that they mentioned the AI Safety and Awareness Project. It's highly likely that we'll invite them as speakers in September. So stay tuned.
Awesome.
More information will come out about that as I meet with them. But I wanted to say thank you everyone for joining us for today's conversation and how AI is shaping and impacting our work in digital equity. We know it can kind of feel complex and intimidating, but I think coming together like this to build like shared understanding is really an important step to take. And a really big thank you to City of Seattle's Chief Privacy Officer, Ginger Armbruster, for helping ground us in the basics. And also Sarah, I didn't mean to leave you out. I'm sorry,
No,
Sarah
it's okay.
Carrier as well. And just offering insight into the city's, a thoughtful approach to AI. So, please continue asking questions. You can use our listserv if you're a part of it. If not, I will be following up with everyone who has registered and joined this meeting with the decks and some other. Sorry, I have children here, but some information and decks with links and etc. So
Thank you.
again, I appreciate everyone's time today, and we will see you in a couple months if you're able to join.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you
everyone.
all.
Take
Bye.
care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.